Welcome to the One Day at a Time Recovery Podcast, where my guests share their stories of addiction, how they recovered, and the tools and practices they use to stay sober now. Well, Paula, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
I'm excited to have you because you wrote Hitchhiking Into Recovery, a journey of connection, healing, and hope. Listen, I published a book last year. It took me forever. What was it like for you to write this book and finally publish it?
Well, it's such a process, first of all. I mean, getting ready to write took years, if not decades. And then when you start writing, you write and you write and you write and you write, and you don't realize that there's so much to be refined.
Yeah.
And I had an incredible developmental editor who really, really helped me define the book and clarify a lot of what I was trying to convey in the story. And by the time I went through 3 rounds of developmental editing, and I'm so pleased that
Wow.
she took that much dedication and time with me, and I'm really pleased with how it came out. But
Yeah,
it was an
really.
incredible process, and I awakened a lot. There was a lot of stuff that I was surprised by when it was all done and said and ready for copy editing. So
What was it that surprised you?
one of the pieces that surprised me the most was the common thread that my grandmother had impacted me as a child, and then even during my years of drinking and mayhem, and then in my early recovery, and even still today, just the remarkable impact she and her love had on me. I didn't realize it until I really wrote it. And that was
Yeah.
really just a powerful awareness that has been, frankly, very healing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there is something about getting it all out on paper, even though so you got sober in 1988, is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sure you've had lots of time to do lots of writing, but there is something about telling the story from beginning to end that when you see your work all together, there are other lessons, maybe deeper lessons that come out of that. So I could definitely see how the love of grandma really jumps out at you. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, people leave a mark, right? Love is powerful. So
Yeah.
certain people really leave a mark and a legacy. And one of the pieces that was really cool is I got to see that I carry forward some of her legacy in the way that I grandmother. So it was
Aw.
really neat.
Yeah. How many grandkids do you have?
2, they are
Oh,
6 and 2. I just got back from visiting them. They live in Dallas, so I just got back from visiting them yesterday.
oh, that's beautiful. I bet your heart is full.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, before we jump into it, I like to play a little game called the lightning round.
All right.
I don't know if you're familiar, but don't be afraid. It's very slow. When you first got sober, like in 1988, there wasn't like the list of memoirs and all that we have today. But when you first got sober, were there any books in particular that helped you on your journey of recovery?
Gosh, it's maybe cliche, but it was the Big Book and the 12 and 12. I
Yeah.
mean, I was so taken by the Big Book. My first sponsor wanted me to read through the entire thing and highlight everything in the first 164 that I related to, and I was really remarkably taken aback. Like, wow, that's a lot. And there was so much that really did relate, and I was like, gosh, whoever wrote this was kind of a genius. Later, of course, I recognized that's divine intervention.
Yeah.
But wow, yeah, I was really taken by the Big Book.
That's amazing. Yeah. So I got sober in 94 and there really wasn't anything else about sobriety. And I did struggle, honestly, with some of the language, but I think because I was so desperate, I was, willing to do anything that they told me to do. So they said, read the big book, and I was all in. I was a little confused about who John Barleycorn was. Little insider joke for those who haven't read the
Right?
book. But yeah, all things became clear with a sponsor. Yeah. Do you have a regular self-care practice? And that could be like your morning routine, or do you have a weekly routine? What does that look like for you?
And, there's a few things. One, I have a very active step 11, and I love talking to other people who are active in recovery because they get what that means. So I call it my daily quiet time, very, very dedicated morning practice of getting into prayer and meditation. I use frequency music. Big fan of that entire like foundation setting for the day. I'm fascinated by nutrition and researching the different facets of food and healing and how it all works. So I'd like to think I eat well. I exercise probably like 4 or 5 times a week. I don't have as like a daily routine of exercise, but there's such a value. I'm 58, so there's such a value in strength training
Hmm.
and in movement when it comes to just the everyday stresses of life and owning a business or writing a book or whatever, that you kind of need that physical outlet to get it out. So, yeah, there's a few.
No, that's really good. No, we're really close in age. I just turned 57, and you know, someone you might like is Dr. Gabrielle Lyons. I don't know if you know her already. She did this amazing interview with Dr. Andrew Huberman, but the one thing, and they go into the mechanics of everything. And one thing that she said that really stuck with me is that muscle contraction is medicine. And she kinda goes good, and it kinda goes into the mechanics of it, and I like understanding why things work. For some reason, it's, like, more motivating for me, so I do, like, a lot of weight training is what I do
Mhm.
too, I don't do a lot
Right.
of cardio. But it's interesting how when the muscle contraction happens, it releases things like the serotonin, oxytocin. Everyone relates it to dopamine. Dopamine is released after you work out, which is kinda
Mhm.
interesting, it's not really motivating, but anyway, a lot of people that I've interviewed over the last, 9.5 years or so, almost everybody has some sort of physical exercise as a way of stress management, as a way of calming the mind, so that's huge. 5 days a week is really good.
You can't argue with the science.
Can't argue well, some people do. What I like to say is run the experiment for yourself. Like, don't take any I'm a skeptic by nature, so don't take anything we say at face value. Run the experiment for yourself and see how you feel.
Agreed.
Yeah, move follows action. You know, it's been a minute since you got sober. 1980. What is that, 37 years?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Looking back over your recovery, would you say that there is a theme to your sobriety? Is there a mantra that you come back to time and again? Is there we love cliches and 12 step. Is there something that really resonates with you that's carried you through?
Gosh, there's actually quite a few, but a lot of people who know me well have heard me repeat over and over that feelings and facts are not the same. And there's a lot of times that I have to go into that where I can sense I'm stressed or I'm anxious or I'm pissed off or whatever it is. And I have to step back, which is what recovery gave me the gift of being able to do and recognize, okay, that's how you feel, but what's really happening? Let's like really examine it. And I kind of get into that bird's eye view and look down because we learn how to feel better when we get into recovery. That doesn't mean we're going to feel better. That means we're going to feel better. And we start understanding, what is this emotion? Can I name it? Is there more than one happening right now? What's a healthy expression of this emotion? So when we start looking at the examination of feelings, one, we can recognize feelings and facts are not always the same. Sometimes I'm just sensitive and emotional, and that's not really what the reality is. Give your body a few minutes to let it express physically. But when you also start identifying what is the feeling and you start recognizing what's a healthier expression of it, then you get to the point where you can manage those feelings better. So you feel better.
Yeah. I always tell people, like, when we talk about feeling better, it's like you're gonna feel your sadness better, you're gonna feel your anxiety better. But then we also give people tools to manage that, not suppress,
Yeah.
right? But to feel your feelings so
Yes.
that you can keep it moving. Is there one thing that you wish you would have known when you first got sober?
Dare I say that I was going to live beyond 30? I feel like I'm on borrowed time. I feel
Mm,
like I was very reckless out there. And I feel like the way that I was conducting myself put my life at risk numerous times. And I believe that if I would have had this kind of little intuitive insight then that this is going, I'm going to grow past 50. I'm going to grow past 40. I'm going to grow old, in recovery. I wonder if I would have looked at a few of these kind of longer game things like travel or finances or some of the pieces that I would have planned a little bit better, a little bit earlier. But the first probably 10, 20 years, I lived in the one day at a time model quite a bit. I'm good today. I'm good today. I didn't really kind of focus on a future plan until I was probably about 20 years sober. And I really started
Yeah.
focusing, okay, wait a minute. There's a long game going here. I kind of want to make it to my 90s. I like this life gig. So,
No, that's good. I feel like a lot of us have these really deep epiphanies. Like there is benefit to long-term sobriety. When I turned 20, I think my initial reaction was sadness, which surprised me because I was like, oh, how come I'm not better yet?
yeah, hallelujah. Thanks
Right?
for
Like,
saying that.
how come I'm not healed and whole already?
Shouldn't I
Yeah.
be further along? Shouldn't my life be
For
more
yeah.
perfect?
Yeah, I think that's where I was coming from. It's like, shouldn't I be better than this? As if there was something wrong with this. And I think that can be an idea that plagues us from day one, right? Like, shouldn't I be different? Shouldn't I be better?
Well, one of the things you wrote about it in your book, and you wrote it really beautifully about how certain moments or reactions from parents or throughout our conditioning, when they're repeated, like we're dismissed or we're shushed or we're, invalidated, that eventually that internalizes as I'm not good enough or
Yeah.
I'm not lovable. And those are tough conditioning wounds to heal.
Yeah.
And I know people with long term sobriety who still battle with the idea of redemption. I'm sure you do too.
I do.
And
Yeah.
here we are, still paying it forward and loving paying it forward because this is who I am. This is what I'm going to continue to do because I never want to be that again.
Yeah. Yeah. I learned about the default mode network that as you grow up, your neurology is shaped in a specific way to respond to certain types of stressors. And so anytime we catch a whiff of something that felt old and familiar, it kind of like tricks, triggers the amygdala to go offline. And then you're reacting from your vagus nerve. And half the time, I didn't even know why I was being triggered. Getting sober and stuff, you're suddenly aware of all your feelings, and you just don't even know why. So, everybody gets that, like, you and I work out, right? So, we understand that if we want to stay in shape, we continue to work out. But the same thing happens with our emotions. So, I have a specific default, and as I do all this work of self-care, the meditation, the exercise, being of service, that reshapes my default mode, but if I stop doing all that stuff, I go back to factory settings.
Yes,
Yeah.
quickly.
Quickly, yeah. But the good news is as soon as we implement those practices, we can feel better very quickly too, so that's the good news.
Well, and I think that was probably one of the more valuable things I learned early that this is a practice of the principles
A practice, yeah,
behind each of the steps, that we practice this.
yeah,
And so I practice still. And when I rest on my laurels or I become complacent, I know what's happening. When I get restless, irritable, and discontent, I know that something is complacent. So I have to
right.
get back to the practice. And sometimes I have to identify which practice is lacking.
That's a really good point, yeah. How do you assess which practice is lacking?
Prayer and meditation. I mean, I take a lot of that to the divine. Like,
Mm,
okay, where am I missing here? Sometimes I know pretty quickly. Like, I can tell that I'm impatient or I'm worried about something outside of me or I'm feeling some powerlessness. Life circumstances can be great identifiers.
yeah,
So sometimes I can tell this is what's happening, or this is what's happening, or this is what's happening. That's causing certain emotions to create that restless, irritable discontent. And most of the time, the most important practice is surrender. If you can't control it, you probably should let it go. Trust it
Right.
to the divine. Probably not yours to control.
Yeah, listen, there is so little we can actually control, which is the funny part. It's like, "Oh, that's right. I have very little control." Sometimes even over myself, so let's just focus on
Right.
what we can control. Well, that was it for the lightning round, not too bad. And I do wanna get back to your book. I'm so curious about the title, Hitchhiking Into Recovery. Where did that title come from? Did hitchhiking symbolize something for you?
I was picked up hitchhiking. That is how
Ah,
I ended up in recovery.
okay.
So the book is the what it was like, how I got here, what it's like now predominantly. And I was picked up hitchhiking in 1988 and made friends with somebody who was almost 2 years clean and sober at the time. And it took us a few weeks to really connect on the same wavelength. It was immediate attraction rather than promotion because he talked about motorcycle trips and raft trips and campouts, and they had these dances. I got sober in Sacramento, so in NA, Narcotics Anonymous. So in all of their program, there was a lot of social activity, a lot of fellowship.
A lot of
But he didn't really
fun.
talk about meetings.
Oh,
He just talked about how we were all clean and sober and we didn't use any drugs or alcohol, but we really had a great time. Immediately attracted to that ideal, but continued drinking and drugging until I didn't, until I had a one really rough day and reached out to him and said, "Hey, like, do you guys do meetings too?"
do you do actual recovery? Let's, take a step back and talk about kinda how you got to that point. And I typically start with childhood, that sets the stage for everything. So, what was it like growing up for you? What did your parents do? Did you have siblings? Where did you grow up? That kind of a thing?
So I grew up in Colorado. I'm a Colorado native, and I jokingly call it in an above average dysfunctional family. A lot of abuse, a lot of neglect, a lot of mayhem. My family were all restaurant and bar people. My father was not in the picture. It was mostly, I was raised by my maternal side of the family, and they were all restaurant bar people who were also alcoholic and addict. And I transferred schools 13 times before I dropped out in the middle of high school. Grew up around a lot of people knowing how to manage emotions by fixing. Let's eat, let's drink, let's fight, let's have too much emotion and drama. At 12, I drank for the first time with intention to get drunk and was pretty much off to the races. I mean, the first time that I drank, I blacked out. And the first time that I blacked out, I was like, oh, this oblivion thing is good. All of the unprocessed emotion, unattended neglect, all of the wounded little girl got to shut down. And so I smoked an awful lot of pot and I drank whenever I could and blacked out almost every time I got drunk. And by the time I was 14, I knew something was wrong with the way that I drank. By the time I was 16, I could name it alcoholism, although I was in a lot of denial like, no way, I'm only 16. By the time I was 18, there was no more denial. It was pretty clear. I was a very volatile blackout drinker. I left Colorado. I went to Job Corps and I spent a year and a half there. And during the week, Monday through Friday, in the Job Corps program, which is a Department of Labor US government program, I would go to my classes. I would do the vocational training. I got my high school diploma. But every week, Friday would still come, and we would get to take a bus into town. And this was in Clearfield, Utah. We would go to Salt Lake or Ogden, and everybody would party on the weekend. And I would go straight back to that same volatile blackout every time I drank. But I was coming to this deeper awareness like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be just another typical member of my family. I don't want to be in this pattern. And I started actively admitting, I'm alcoholic. I've got to stop drinking. I've got a problem. And I thought I would navigate it by myself. I did not. After I graduated Job Corps, I came back to Colorado, but I was afraid to stay here. So I moved to California with a friend from high school. And that's where I met the guy that picked me up hitchhiking. I hitchhiked everywhere throughout all of my drinking. So hitchhiking was pretty much my primary mode of transportation. By purely the grace of God, I never got in the wrong car. Very, very lucky. And when I did get picked up hitchhiking by, his name is JC. I wrote a whole thing about him in the book. That was the ride that pretty much saved my life. So, yeah, he took me to my first meeting.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Mhm.
So tell me, so you started drinking at 12 and blacking out right away. Did you face any consequences from the adults? Like, did anybody notice that you were doing this or
No, and to be honest, my first few years of recovery, I was really resentful about that. Like, why didn't anybody tell me to stop? No
yeah.
teachers, no parents, none. I mean, and the adults were drunk themselves, so they didn't really notice. There were a couple of friends that I admitted it to, but there weren't friends that were like, "You probably need to stop drinking." We were drinking together, but there wasn't really anyone who kind of got on my case. So there were no consequences, no DUIs, no jail time, several traffic tickets, but no DUIs.
Throughout your entire drinking, no DUIs?
No. And how I kind of wonder. I mean, granted, it was the 80s. Things I do believe were a little bit looser in the 80s, but
Yeah.
yeah, how I drove drunk all the time. So how I didn't get a DUI or hurt anybody was a miracle that I'm incredibly grateful for.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, I drove drunk all the time too, but I had a, boyfriend that was a DUI cop, so I'd get pulled over and hand his business card with my driver's license, and they would just let me go. That's pretty wild.
It is wild.
I don't think that happens anymore.
No.
I hope not. So, why do you think you drank?
Escapism. I didn't want to feel. I didn't want to. I didn't know what else to do, honestly. I mean, it was such strong conditioning. That's what I witnessed. That's how they handled everything, was they drank at it. And when I started drinking at it, I understood why they drank at it. Um, and a lot of it, as a teenager, my mindset was this was fun. Let's go have fun. And initially it was. I mean, I had some fun in the beginning. I was a funny drunk. I was a playful drunk. I led people down some wild and crazy paths, but the inner soul wound of I don't like who I am when I drink. I don't like this embarrassment the next day. I said, "What? I did what?" I mean, oh my gosh, the stories they would tell me of how I behaved in a blackout were mortifying. So,
What kinds of stories were they telling you?
oh, how I would throw things or hit things or say dumb things to people. I mean, they had 3-2 bars in Colorado. So at 18 years old, you were allowed to drink legally. And it was weak beer, watered down beer. And I would drink enough of it still to get drunk. And of course, we would pregame before we went to these 3-2 bars. And we went to go see live bands. And I don't remember it, but apparently I bit the bass player on his thigh.
Oops.
Walked up to the stage and just bit him on the leg. And I'm like, what? I did what? I mean, I was mortified. I mean, who
Yeah.
does that kind of stuff? So just the stupid things we do.
Yeah, you also mentioned there was, like, this element of volatility. What was that around? Was your anger coming out while
Hmm.
you were drinking?
Yeah. And I'm certain that it was anger at the adults, anger at my childhood, anger at the numerous situations as a kid that I was powerless over.
Yeah.
I mean, we were moved, we were beaten, we were put in very dangerous situations. There was a lot of predators. So there was a lot of situations where a lot of trauma occurred and nobody was protecting us from that. So when you're older and wiser, even if it is only 15, 16, you do have an awareness that they should have protected me. So I'm,
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's part of it. And I'm thinking also there's a lot of children who are abused, especially if it contains some sexual abuse. There's that big question mark in your own mind. Why didn't I say no? Why
Right.
didn't I stop him? When you're terrified and you're 5, you don't know how. So when you're emotionally maturity stunted by drinking, you're certainly still in that 5-year-old mode of anger, but it's coming out because you have that alcohol courage.
Yeah. That is really young to be abused. Yeah, and, how old so you were 5 years old, and was it a family member? Was it somebody
Unfortunately, there were numerous perpetrators. There were probably, I want to say 5 or 6, and it started at age 3
Oh
and
my
went till
god.
about age 11.
Oh,
So, yeah,
Paula.
it was pretty brutal. And it was just truly lack of supervision and lack of an adult capability to navigate it or manage it.
Yeah,
And it was also a very frightened child who doesn't know how to say, this is happening because,
yeah,
your life is threatened. Don't you
yeah.
tell, don't you tell. So you don't tell.
Oh, it's so sad. Yeah, that is terrifying, we don't have the language to either say no or stop or tell an adult and all that fear, and it does leave us it's interesting, I'll never forget, I interviewed Dr. David Spiegel. He was a, psychiatrist at Stanford. He was, like, the chief of the psychiatry department for, like, 40 years, and I asked him, "Why is it that sexual abuse victims always feel so guilty?" And what he told me is that it's easier to feel guilty than it is to feel powerless. Because with guilt, we blame ourselves and we think, oh, I could have done something different, which sort of alludes to this idea that there was some choice in there. And that if there was choice in there, that means that we could learn from our experience and choose again without really understanding that there was no choice. But the feeling of powerlessness is so scary that it's easier to feel guilty than powerless.
Yeah, that's a very reasonable answer, too. And as we live a life of recovery and we work the steps a few times and we practice the principles and we understand what healing looks like, we start to recognize the difference between guilt and powerlessness.
Right.
So we have an awareness and both you and I walking a path as therapists, we even see it more deeply because of that curiosity. Like I wanted to understand a lot of the trauma that I held and a lot
Yeah.
of what I was drinking at. I wanted to know, why am I alcoholic?
Yeah.
What is my problem? I saw enough of it. I knew it was wrong. I knew I didn't want to be, but yet here I am. I'm a very curious by nature, wanted to
Yeah.
really figure it all out.
Which is whenever I hear "figure it out," it's so interesting because "figure it out" is not a slogan. But I feel like there is some value in understanding, like, why I feel like everybody has to ask the question, "Why am I like this? What happened to me?" Why there's that book by Dr. Bruce Perry, it's like, "What happened to you?" Which is a slight pivot from what's wrong with you,
Mm,
and when we understand what happened to us as we were growing up, it, sort of helps us to make sense of the world that why we're like this, and as it turns out, the lens through science sort of depersonalizes it so that we can accept really that it wasn't our fault. Because I think it's hard to accept that it's not our fault.
right. And one of the coolest things that's occurring now is there's a lot more awareness too around cellular memory. So I'm a
Yes.
cellular release therapist. And when we start understanding what happens at the cellular level during a traumatic event and how your cells recreate themselves every 24 hours, that trauma stays with us until we truly release it at a cellular level. And that can be through new behaviors, new practices, new life and recovery, but it can also be through deeper subconscious work of inviting the cells to actually release specific traumas. So it's so powerful to understand what happens to us during a trauma as a child
Yeah.
or even as an adult. I mean, life
Right.
continues to happen.
Like, it continues to happen. This is true. Okay, so, how old were you when you met the guy that picked you up when you were hitchhiking?
I was 20.
You were 20. Oh, so
Mhm.
young. Man, you saved yourself a lot of heartache by getting sober so young.
I feel so, so lucky for that. I do. I do.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if I wouldn't have gotten sober, I just don't believe I'd be here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's easy to see with all the risky behavior and putting ourselves in
Hmm.
dangerous situations. You start going to meetings. You ask your friend to take you to a meeting. You start going to meetings. Did you do the typical 90 meetings in 90 days? You get a sponsor, you work the steps, you kind of jumped in with both feet. How was that process for you?
I did probably 150, 170 meetings in 90 days. I went once or twice a day, sometimes three times a day in the beginning. I went through three sponsors in my first couple of years. I had some, we've heard it in the program numerous times. My picker is broken. I did not pick my sponsors very well in the beginning, but I did dive into service work. So between meetings and service work, that really saved my life those first 5 years. I went through four sponsors in my first probably 2 years. And then I got married and I had children and I continued to do service and went through a brutal divorce right around 5 years sober, separations that led to a divorce. And that's when one of my closest friends, I write about her in the book, she has her own chapter. I looked over at her after a meeting one day and I'm like, you're my sponsor, right? And she's like, I do. So show up at my house on Saturday with a notebook and a pen. We're doing the deal. And
Nice.
I'm so grateful for her. I mean, she really, really saved my bacon. That was valuable.
Yeah. Did you guys do like the exercise for step one I have in my book is defining powerlessness and unmanageability and finding examples of both? Did you do something similar?
One of my first sponsors took me through a really, really in depth first step writing exercise that to this day administer with every sponsee that I work with. But it was, I'm powerless over, my powerlessness over alcohol contributed to my health this way, or to my career this way, or to my family. And my life is unmanageable in these areas of health, family, money, whatever it was, to really break it down. And that really was valuable to more clearly define the powerlessness in my life.
Yeah.
So I did do that again. I showed that to her at 5 years and I said, what do you think about this? She goes, oh, this is good. So we did it again. And there was even more awareness because I had been sober now for 5 years. So
Yeah.
I was able to really clarify. So yeah, I did not work the steps all the way through. I started and stopped a couple of times in that first 2 years, but
That's
at
pretty
5 years got
normal.
real thorough. Yeah.
Wouldn't she say it's I mean, you've been around a long time. Wouldn't she say that it's pretty normal that people start and stop a bunch of times?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think any two people really walk the same path of recovery, but
Mm-mm.
it's kind of whatever you find the value in. I mean, the whole premise of the book is the four pillars of connection. And that's where I landed all these years later of recognizing that there's community, there's a sponsor, there is service work, and there is a daily divine alignment. Those are the pieces that, with all of my curiosity and analytical mind, I really kind of narrowed it down to over like the last 10 years. These are the pieces that really make for a healthy recovery because I don't feel like I had like a real traditional walk in those first 5 years.
Yeah, I would agree with you that I don't think any 2 people really actually do the same kind of recovery. Everyone is coming in with a different set of traumas or circumstances, and I love that saying I heard early on, which there was a wrench for every nut, right? Like, there's and, yeah, I got lucky in the beginning. I heard that you pick somebody who has what you want. And, in my book, I write about Kimmer. She was actually my 3rd sponsor. So I went through a couple that were sorta just not right. When people are looking for a sponsor, do you have recommendations around that?
Mm. Yeah, I recommend people get to know somebody before they ask them. Like, go to the same meetings that they go to, learn more about if what they're talking about is how they're living. Go
There it
have
is.
coffee, go have
Yeah.
lunch, learn what they really have before you determine do they have what I want? Because that's where I misstepped. I mean, my first sponsor was close friends with the guy that I dated in my first year. I dated in my first year.
Yeah.
And she was close friends with his ex-girlfriend. And in the middle of my fourth step, that's the reason she terminated her sponsorship, because she was friends with his ex-girlfriend. And then the second sponsor I had was, she had this gathering to work the steps, but all we did was gossip. And I was like, I don't,
Ooh.
I don't know if this is, are we working steps? I mean, I didn't understand.
Yeah.
So I terminated that one. My third sponsor, she had 4 kids and she was great and I loved her, but it was just chaos every time we met. And the distraction was stressful. As much as I loved her and her message, it was stressful. My fourth sponsor gave me the requirement of reading the Book of Mormon. And I was like, well,
What? Yeah. That's
no.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, my picker's broken. Sponsorship's on hold for a minute.
You scared me for a second. I thought that was gonna be the one that worked out.
No, no, no,
Uh-oh.
no. That was a horrible end, horrible argument. And yeah, no, that was a tough day.
Yeah, that's rough. And I think, I love your advice of get to know somebody and make sure they're walking the talk, because I've heard many people say some amazing things at the podium level. Where I come from, everyone, speaks in front of the room, and you hear some amazing things, and then you talk to the people that they date or they hang out with, and you're like, "What? What is happening?" It's
Oh,
it's
yeah,
nothing to do. Yeah. Listen, it's not the hotbed of mental health, right? Like,
right.
it offers an opportunity to, sort of bump up against other people who might be having the same issues that you do, and, hopefully, the experience of the steps allows you to sort of there was this great analogy I heard from Marianne Williamson. She says that a gemologist will put 2 rough amethysts in a tumbler together, and as they tumble together, they knock off their rough edges and they come out smooth. I almost feel like that's how the 12-step communities are sometimes. We get thrown in together with these people who have rough edges, and we have rough edges, and then we kinda tumble around and we catch resentments, and then you go to your sponsor, and your sponsors ask you to practice self-reflection, and you learn more about yourself. And hopefully, the learning that we have about ourselves includes compassion.
Yeah.
That, if you spot it, you got it. And what are we judging in other people? Well, we have that too. And can we love our unlovable parts? And pretty soon you kind of smooth out a little bit. But I think without that experience of like that tumbling with all these people that are kind of crazy sometimes, it's like, yeah, it's sort of an accelerated way to process your stuff. But
I
yeah.
love that analogy. I think that's a very good analogy because there's some really incredibly high quality people too
There are, yeah.
in recovery. And if you do 90 meetings in 90 days, you'll identify. Like I heard that over and over in the beginning, pick the winners, right?
Yeah,
And so I kind of paid attention to who said what and how they carried themselves. And sometimes even in meetings, like sometimes they were sitting there in silence, observing. And I just admired their kind of stoicness. They're so
yeah,
stoic and they're so grounded and they just felt safe. And that gave me an idea. This person energetically is pretty healthy. They're doing the deal.
yeah,
And then you could see who was chaotic and bouncy and energy that didn't feel so grounded.
yeah. I think we start to learn to trust our intuition, because we actually you can feel it, like you were saying.
Yeah,
There is an energetic level, like, you can feel it in someone's presence, whether you're safe or not. And
right.
I would often say, listen to what they're saying. If they're talking about somebody else's business, they are 100% talking about yours. So
Right.
that's that's my little 2 cents for that. Okay, so you're going through the steps. Did you already have a concept of a higher power that you grew up with, or how did you come to grips with the concept of a higher power? Because that is, you see God, and a lot of people are like, "Oh my God, it's a religious program." How did you navigate that?
I did not grow up with that. My grandmother was Methodist, my grandfather was Jewish. I had a Baptist stepfather, Catholic aunt. I mean, it was all over the place growing up and nobody was really sane. So I did not have a concept of a higher power. And when I got into the meetings at 20 and they said, a God of your own understanding, I still struggled. The word God scared me. I had that idea that I'm not worthy of God. This God punishes and I'm bad. But I did hear the group of drunks. And you wrote about that in your book too. That was a power greater than myself. For me, very early on, just coming into a meeting and just sitting down, I almost immediately felt softened. I could just feel the energy of the room. Like we're all people here just trying to rough out the or, smooth out the rough edges together. It's not a bed of health, but we're doing it together. And I always felt safer sitting in a meeting than I did at home by myself in my own thoughts. So a group of drunks was very viable. They had light in their eyes. They were showing up to work on time. They were paying bills. And there was something that about just living a responsible adult life that was way bigger than me. That was a power greater than myself. It did evolve into something much, much deeper and much more beautiful. I feel like I've been rocketed into like the 18th dimension now that I've kind of stepped into all the metaphysics. But yeah,
Yeah, forget the fourth dimension. I totally
right,
get that.
right. It goes way further than that if you stick around and deepen into the spirituality and metaphysical piece.
Yeah, it does get way deeper. Oh my goodness. Let's talk a little bit about, we go through the inventory process where we're able to what I loved about the 4 step was that it was like a real to me, it was like license to bitch. Somebody was like, "What? You write down everybody that you get to write down all the people who did you wrong?" Like, "What are you talking about?" Because I kept hearing people do steps 1, 2, and 3 and relapse, and I was terrified of relapsing, and I was like, "What is this 4-step thing?" And, what was that? Were you scared to do it? Did you jump in? What was that experience like?
When I talk about that first sponsor, I was in the heart of that fourth step and I was really already starting to see some patterns about myself when she terminated the relationship. So I kept wanting to go back to that because I remembered I was 6 months sober. I was starting to see some things through that writing, and then I never could quite get that again. And so when I did do the full, thorough fourth step at 5 years with Shawnee, I was kind of excited to do it. And we had a really long and intense fifth step that was just so enlightening. I mean, I learned so much through the process, and things just started to make more sense about who I was and why we have 4 and 5. And so I was kind of excited to get back to it when I did finally feel safe enough to ask somebody to do it with me.
So you had started it, and when you started it, you wrote out the list of people. For those that don't know, if step 4 is made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. And typically there's 4 columns. So in the first column, it's the people that you're resentful at. The second column was get specific about the cause of the resentment. And then the third column is how were you affected by it? And the fourth column is what was your part in it? And, so just starting that process, you began to see patterns, like, without having to share it, you were able to see some patterns?
Yeah, I was in the fourth column, like
Oh, wow.
almost finished when she made the phone call that I can't be your sponsor anymore. And I was devastated
Yeah, I
because
would
I was
imagine.
really looking forward to kind of sharing some of the lights that were coming on in that fifth step. But of course, I just respected the conversation and let it go very
Yeah.
quickly because I didn't know how to handle that type of rejection or that type of conversation with like,
No.
wait a minute, I'm new and I'm in the heart of a fourth step. What do you mean you can't work with me? That
Yeah.
isn't even right.
Yeah, that
If
was
I would have
brutal.
known, of course, then what I know now, I probably would have maybe put up a bit of a fight, but yeah, I did not.
Yeah. Added another name to the resentment list.
Made the second inventory.
Yeah, for me, so step 5 is when you share it with somebody, and that is for me where the compassion came in because I was, very hard on myself. I blame myself for everything. It was actually that's not true because there was a weird sense of relegating like, I was a big blamer. I was a big victim. So there was that whole 4-step process allowed me to separate out what was mine and what wasn't. Yeah, that was super helpful, but being able to share, it's like they say confession is good for the soul, like, it felt so good to be able to go through that with somebody and hear the things I was so ashamed about, my sponsor be like, "Yep, I did that too. Oh, and I'll do you one better," you know? She
Yep. Yeah,
but to just get it all
exactly.
out was so good.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I had an incredible sponsor when I did finally make it all the way through that first round of steps.
Yeah,
Sean,
it's amazing you were able to make it to 5 years without, doing the
amen to service work.
yeah,
I to this day, 37 years later, I still answer calls for the 12-step programs.
nice.
I got thrown into the NA hotline in at like 30 days clean.
Yeah,
And to this day, I still answer calls for off hours for the
that's
Denver
amazing.
central office. Yeah.
Central office, yeah. That was one of those service commitments that was kinda easy to do because you could actually do well, maybe easy is not the right word, but simple because I would, we did the service we did the AA hotline for, like, 8 years, and you take calls, and then you have a list of people that you can call and, refer to. So when I didn't have sponsees or when I found that I had some time, I would actually call the service line and be like, "Hey, I'm available for the next hour or 2, and you can divert calls to me." So I was just available. So that was sort of a convenient way maybe to
Mhm.
do service work without having to sign up for a formal service position.
Well, and just the idea to be there for somebody who, whether it's a family member or somebody who wants to stop drinking or somebody who doesn't want to stop drinking and complain about their drinking,
Yeah.
you get all kinds of calls, but it is a way to be really reminded of what it's like out there and why you're sober. So for me, it's
100%.
always been really impactful just it takes you right back to that beginning of why do I want to live this way?
Yeah, what am I doing here again?
I don't
Yeah.
ever want to go back there. That's why.
Yeah, there's that line in the big book that says, "Nothing ensures sobriety like intense work with another alcoholic."
Amen.
Yeah, service is magical. So, what so you write the book. What do you think if within our few minutes that we have left, what are really some of the messages that you really wanted to convey in this book?
The core message of the book is the four pillars of connection. And it's something that in my walk was built over my duration of sobriety
Yeah,
and that I identified. I mean, there's a lot of studies about addiction and alcoholism and all the substance abuse. And one of the core causes is disconnect,
yeah,
not feeling connected to a community or a higher power or service. In my exploration of all of the why are we addicted? Why are we alcoholic? As well as why does one person get sober this way and another person get sober that way? And because there's so many different ways to get sober now, there are so many resources. And I
yeah,
love that. I
me
think that's
too.
incredibly valuable. The 12-step programs are my foundation, and that's the path that I always revert back to. But I love that there are numerous solutions now.
Yeah,
But my curious mind wanted to kind of align. So, what are the components of these successful programs? And if you look at any of them, whether it's AA or anything else, you'll see that there is community, there is service, there is a mentor sponsor in AA, and there is a divine alignment prayer and meditation component. So, the whole core message of the book is about those four pillars of connection: connecting to a community, finding a community, getting comfortable in that community, finding a mentor, getting comfortable with that mentor, doing what they did if you want what they have, service work, figuring out how can you contribute. And I love, again, how you wrote that in your book. That builds your self-esteem. That helps you repair that shame and that self-hatred. And it gives you meaning to your life. And then this daily divine alignment. Again, I, 90 years ago, when Alcoholics Anonymous was founded, there was such a tremendous awareness that came from just divine intervention. I mean, I don't know how else you can explain it.
I know, it's
One
so crazy.
alcoholic helping another. Let's get into a God of our own understanding. Let's have step 11, daily prayer and meditation. I mean, some of it's really rather genius. But for my overview and analytical mind, it was those four primary pillars of connection that really create kind of the foundation for a healthy way of living in recovery for anybody, no matter which way they choose to find recovery.
Yeah, I love all these, right? I very much agree with all this. I kinda wanna focus in on divine alignment. That seems to be up for a lot of people in my circle, and it's this idea of, we talk about seeking I'm using air quotes on a podcast, but God's will, and so I was doing a lot of writing over the summer. I did self-care summer, and it was, like, a lot of journaling and stuff like that and doing a gratitude I trade gratitude lists with people, and, I mentioned seeking and doing God's will, and somebody asked, "Well, how do you know?" You know you're doing God's will, and I was like, "Ugh, I don't know. I just kinda follow my heart and try to do the next right thing," like and what I realize is, like, I don't actually have to know. You know what I mean? It's not like, my mind is super active. I'm a self-help junkie. I like consuming information, but I get lost in the trying to figure it out, and I err on the, "Oh, I need to take more action."
Hmm.
Part of it, because self-knowledge avails us nothing, as they say. So how do you, sort of get in touch with how do you get into divine alignment? How do you know that you're following God's will? What is all how do you make sense of all that?
So I love that question, and I love your answer to that question. Sometimes we just have to see, where does our heart and soul feel? Like, I feel aligned. I feel right in my soul. And, I know without any hesitation when I am in self will run riot. Okay. When I'm in self will and I want and I'm controlling and it has to go this way, I can feel that restlessness. I can feel the irritability. I can sense myself getting angry. And when I take a moment to stop, and for me, oftentimes it's the third step prayer. I'll say it, and almost every single time I say it, especially when I say it with a real pure intention and pay attention to every word of what am I saying in that third step prayer. I literally, like, I catch my breath. I feel like spirit just fill me. There it is. Okay. All right. That's divine alignment. Like, I have my free will. I can do whatever I want. And then there's divine will. But when I align them, things just feel like they are as they should be. And it's more of an intuitive feeling. We will intuitively know how
Mhm.
to handle situations. So it's more intuitive, I guess, now because I'm 24 years in on a very, very committed daily practice with Step 11 based on my current sponsor,
Mm,
Dorothy, who's just an absolute amazing human. But it's that daily commitment that kind of led me to deepening into the awareness. What is my will? What is divine will? When is it aligned? When is it not? It's a
I love
practice.
it. For those who've never heard the third step prayer, could I trouble you to say it?
Sure. God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulty, that victory over them may bear witness to those that I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always.
Yeah. I love it. As you were saying that, my whole body relaxed. I was like,
Every time when it's with that deep intention, I just feel that spirit fill and align with me. I feel it.
yeah, I love that. Everything is as it should be. The one prayer that never fails for me was "Thy will be done."
Yeah. Yeah. No, for people, so one of the things that I teach the women I sponsor, the women and men that I work with as clients, is daily quiet time. Like,
Yeah.
go find a routine, a ritual that works for you. And I tell them I use the daily third step prayer of the 12 steps, but I also tell them you can just say thy will be done. You see how that feels for you.
Oh, that's a good place to start. It's like a little shorthand. I think that the part that always, helps me to sorta sink down into my heart is, relieve me of the bondage of self, because my mind is always so active. I'm always there is a part of me that is always sort of graspy and needy and trying to do the right thing, like not fail, like don't disappoint whoever. I don't nobody cares
Yeah,
what I'm
trying to
doing, but
figure it
like,
out.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure it out. And this idea helps to remind me that, oh, I can relax. Like I have this saying of like never good enough. And I recently heard somebody say, you know what? What if it's never going to be good enough? And what if that's just okay?
Yeah.
And for me, that was as an overachiever, as a, self-help junkie, that was it sort of let me step off of the hamster wheel a little bit.
Beautiful.
Yeah, get into a place of peace. Um, this has been so amazing. I feel like I can't wait for people to get your book. I had like 4 pages of questions and we barely touched on that. But what do you hope readers feel after they finish your book?
Hope that whether it's for themselves or for someone that they love, that recovery is possible and that it can be a lot more simple than we make it. There's so many simplified tools in the path of recovery. Should you be humble enough
Yeah.
to allow yourself to practice them, that you can heal. I mean, one of the things that came from writing the book was the different feedback was I had people like, I never understood my sister. She's an addict, but I get it. And that was like probably
Wow.
one of the most honoring statements I'd ever heard. And just some of the feedback has been really helpful for people to see how it has helped others
Yeah.
understand addiction or understand some of the simplification of connection. So, yeah.
That's beautiful. I love that. I am going to leave links to your book and how people can
Mhm.
contact you. But if somebody's taking notes as they're listening, what is the easiest way for people to reach out to you?
PaulaRobbins.com. Just one of my main websites.
Awesome.
The book is there, my business is there, my contact page is there.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your time today. Congratulations on publishing your book. It's going to be such an amazing resource. And I'm so grateful I got to spend some time with you today.
Thank you so much for having me, really. I admire what you have done with your entire life and your message, and you really have a prominent message in the world. So I'm really
Awesome.
honored to be on the podcast and get to meet you and chat with you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.